The alien Huntress smiled and said, "Human, get ready. You're about to be a father." The crimson desert of Var-Axis 9 stretched endlessly beneath a burning sky. Daniel Cross moved through the dunes with steady steps. His cloak pulled tight against the dry winds. Sand hissed against his boots, and every breath tasted of dust and iron. The world was empty, hostile, and alive with danger. Few men had walked this far into the wastes, and even fewer returned. Daniel was a scout, trained to survive where maps failed and where storms swallowed entire expeditions. He had crossed alien jungles and ice fields, but nothing compared to Var-Axis 9. The heat scorched him by day, the cold clawed at him by night, and the storms carved the land into canyons of shifting stone. Yet he pressed forward, recording terrain for the Union one step at a time. When the sun dipped low and the desert bled into night, he stopped near a jagged outcrop of black rock. He struck flint, lit a small fire, and let the orange glow push back the darkness. The flames cracked softly, and for a moment he thought he was alone. But Var-Axis 9 never allowed peace for long. A whisper of movement circled him. Daniel stiffened, hand inching toward the knife at his belt. Too late. Cold steel brushed his throat, sharp and sure. A low voice followed, cutting through the wind like a predator's growl. "Human, do not move." Daniel's eyes shifted, and in the firelight he saw her. She stood tall, blade poised against his skin. Her violet skin shimmered with faint markings, her golden eyes glowing like molten fire. Long black hair spilled down her back, catching the flicker of the flames. Her body was lean, shaped by a lifetime of hunting. She was beautiful and terrifying, a shadow carved from the desert itself. "You walk boldly," she said, her blade never trembling. "Too boldly for one so fragile. Var-Axis does not forgive trespassers." Daniel forced his voice calm. "I am only here to chart the land. I seek no quarrel with you." She tilted her head, studying him like a hawk sizing prey. "Your kind should never have set foot here. The desert will break you, or I will." Before Daniel could reply, the ground trembled. The firelight wavered, and a sound rose from the sands, low, guttural, like stone grinding against stone. The huntress glanced toward the dark, her blade twitching. Out of the shifting dunes came a creature the size of a war beast, its body armored in crimson scales, its limbs long and spiked. It lunged, jaws wide, rows of teeth gleaming like broken glass. The alien woman spun to fight, but the beast struck with brutal force. She was knocked to the ground, her blade flying from her grip. The monster's weight pinned her, its claws sinking into the sand beside her head. For the first time, her golden eyes widened, not with anger, but with fear. Daniel moved before thought could catch him. He seized an iron stake from his pack, the one he used to anchor his gear against storms, and charged. With a shout, he drove it deep into the beast's eye. The creature shrieked, thrashing violently, its blood spraying hot across the sand. Daniel clung to the stake, forcing it deeper until the monster's thrashing slowed. At last, the beast collapsed with a shudder, its body sinking into the dune. The desert grew silent again, broken only by Daniel's heavy breaths. He turned toward the huntress. She lay still for a moment, then pushed herself upright, her eyes locked on him. "You saved me," she said, voice quiet, as though she did not believe it. Daniel extended his hand. She hesitated, pride battling with instinct, then took it. He pulled her to her feet, steady and firm. "I do not leave people to die," Daniel said. Her gaze lingered on him, sharp and unreadable. Slowly she retrieved her blade, but she did not lift it against him again. "I am Kalen of the Nasari," she said at last, her tone guarded. "Do not mistake this for gratitude. You are still a trespasser, and I owe you nothing." Daniel sat back at the fire, wiping blood and sand from his hands. "Then perhaps I am only a lucky trespasser." For the first time, something flickered across her face. Not a smile. Not yet. But something softer, something that unsettled even her. She sat across from him, golden eyes watching as the fire burned low. And though the desert winds howled outside their small circle of light, something had shifted between them. The fire burned low, its embers glowing faintly against the dark walls of the desert. Kalen's blade rested at her side, her posture straight and alert, but her eyes never left Daniel. He ate in silence, chewing a strip of dried meat, the weight of her gaze heavy as the storm winds outside. "You fight with no grace," she finally said. "Yet you live. That surprises me." Daniel smirked faintly. "Not every fight needs grace. Sometimes it just needs a sharp stick and a bit of stubbornness." Her eyes narrowed, but not with anger, more with curiosity. "Humans, always clinging to survival as if it were a prize. My people would have let the beast devour you rather than waste the effort." Daniel leaned back, studying her in return. "Maybe that is why your people survive. But it is not why they live." She frowned at the words, as if they unsettled her. For a long time she said nothing. When dawn broke, the storm winds had not eased. Crimson clouds swallowed the horizon, and the dunes shifted underfoot with every gust. Kalen rose, adjusting the straps across her chest, her weapon slung against her back. "You will not last a day alone in this storm," she said. "The desert will bury you." "Then it seems I will need a guide," Daniel answered, pulling his cloak tight. Her golden eyes studied him, weighing pride against practicality. She had every reason to leave him behind, yet she did not. With a sharp exhale, she turned and began walking. "Keep up, human, or the sands will claim your bones." He followed. The days that came after were cruel. The desert storms howled, blinding their vision, scouring their skin raw. They climbed jagged cliffs and crossed dunes so vast that Daniel swore the horizon never moved. The nights were no kinder. Cold sank into his bones, and predators prowled just beyond the firelight. But where he stumbled, Kalen strode forward with the strength of someone who belonged to this world. At first she spoke little to him. When she did, it was sharp, laced with mockery. "Your skin burns under the sun. You drink water as if you were a child. You are slower than a dune hound with broken legs." Daniel took her words with a faint smile. "Yet I am still here beside you." The response seemed to irritate her more than silence. But as days passed, her tone began to change. She noticed how he repaired broken gear with clever hands, turning scraps of metal into tools. She saw how he rationed food carefully, always offering her the larger share when supplies ran low. When the sandstorms grew fierce, he shielded her back without hesitation, planting his body between her and the cutting winds. And though she mocked his weakness, she could not deny the quiet strength that lived within him. One night, when the storm had driven them into a cave carved by centuries of wind, they sat by the fire again. The shadows danced across Kalen's violet skin, her markings glowing faintly like molten veins. She stared into the flames, her voice low and distant. "When I was young, I was told I would never have a life of my own. I was born to hunt, to fight, to serve the clan. No choices. Only duty. That is what it means to be Nasari." Daniel watched her, listening closely. "And do you believe that?" he asked. Her golden eyes flickered toward him. "Belief does not matter. It is truth. I was not made for softness. I was not made for bonds. My life belongs to the hunt." Daniel leaned forward, his expression steady. "Where I come from, people said something similar about me. They said I was better alone, better wandering from one map to the next, never staying, never belonging. For a long time I believed them, until now." The fire crackled between them, the silence heavy with unspoken things. For the first time since their meeting, Kalen's gaze softened. Her sharp edges did not vanish, but the wall between them began to crack. The storm outside howled like a living beast, but inside the cave, something warmer stirred. They still distrusted each other. Their words still cut, sharp and guarded. Yet every day that passed drew them closer. In shared battles against the wilds, in the quiet moments between storms, trust began to take root. And trust, like a seed in harsh soil, slowly began to grow into something more. The days turned into weeks as they crossed the crimson wastes. Daniel had stopped counting the dunes they climbed, but the rhythm of survival became familiar. Each night, when the storms drove them to shelter, they shared firelight and silence. Yet silence slowly began to give way to words, and words began to carry weight. One night, when the wind screamed through the canyon outside, Daniel set a small fire in the hollow of a cave. Kaylin sat across from him, her blade resting beside her leg, her eyes fixed on the flames. Her golden irises glowed faintly in the firelight, but there was something in them he had not seen before, an almost weary stillness. "You humans speak of families," she said suddenly, "of mothers and fathers, of love that lasts through seasons. My kind does not speak of such things. We are taught that bonds weaken the hunter, that softness dulls the blade. Even as a child, I was told I must not desire what others did." Daniel tilted his head. "And did you desire it anyway?" Her gaze lingered on the fire. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then, her voice softened. "Yes." The answer was quiet, but it shook something inside him. He leaned forward, elbows resting on his knees. "You know, I always thought I was better off alone. People said I did not fit anywhere. They said I was too distant, too restless. And maybe they were right. I walked away from every chance at belonging. Until now. And I do not think I want to walk away this time." Her eyes flicked toward him, sharp and searching, as though she were trying to pierce the truth out of his chest. But she found no lie there. His words had no armor, no weapon, only honesty. The wind outside wailed, but inside the cave, the air grew still. Kaylin reached out, slow and uncertain, her hand brushing his wrist. The touch was brief, but it carried more weight than 1,000 words. For a warrior who had never known gentleness, it was almost a confession. In the nights that followed, those touches grew. A brush of her shoulder against his when the cold bit too deep. His hand steadying her when the dunes shifted beneath her feet. Glances that lingered longer than they should have. Words spoken not as rivals, but as something closer, something dangerous. The desert seemed to notice. Predators came for them more often, drawn by the strange pair who walked side by side. They fought them together, Daniel with his clever traps and Kaylin with her blade swift as lightning. Each battle carved their bond deeper, until they no longer thought of survival as his fight or hers. It was theirs. One evening, as the twin moons rose high and silver light painted the dunes, they sat at the edge of a canyon. The air was clear, stars burning bright above them. Daniel had never seen a sky so vast, so endless. Kaylin sat beside him, her hair spilling down her back, her golden eyes fixed on the constellations. "Do your people have stories about the stars?" Daniel asked. Her lips curved faintly, not quite a smile. "Stories? Yes. My people say each star is a fallen warrior, burning forever as punishment for failing the clan. We are taught to fear them." Daniel looked up at the glittering sky. "Where I come from, we see the stars differently. We see them as places waiting to be reached. Every light is a dream, not a punishment." She turned to him, her eyes reflecting starlight. "Dreams," she repeated, as if testing the word on her tongue. "I was not made for dreams." Daniel met her gaze. "Then maybe you were made for this moment instead." Her breath caught, almost too soft to hear. Then, slowly, she leaned closer, her forehead resting against his. The desert air was cold, but her touch burned like fire. For a heartbeat, they did not speak. They did not need to. In that silence, a bond was sealed. No longer rivals, no longer strangers, but something far more dangerous, far more precious. They did not yet call it love, but the desert knew. The stars above knew, and deep down, so did they. The desert had begun to feel less like an enemy and more like a witness. Every storm they endured, every beast they fought, every night spent beneath the stars seemed to weave Daniel and Kaylin closer together. But Varaxis 9 was never silent for long, and neither were her people. It happened on a night when the winds were calm, and the air hung heavy with heat. They had made camp in the hollow of a canyon, its walls etched with the markings of the Nasari. Kaylin sat sharpening her blade, the steel singing softly with each stroke, when shadows appeared at the canyon's mouth. Figures emerged, tall and fierce, their violet skin painted in battle marks, their golden eyes glowing in the dim firelight. Kaelin rose at once, her hand on her weapon. Daniel followed, though his knife felt small in comparison to their curved blades and heavy spears. The warriors fanned out, surrounding them. At their head stood an elder, her hair white as ash, her gaze sharp as broken glass. "Kaelin," the elder said, her voice carrying like thunder in the still air. "Word has spread of your betrayal." Kaelin's jaw tightened. "I have betrayed nothing." "You travel with a human," the elder spat. "You share fire with him. You defend him. Do you deny it?" The warriors' eyes all shifted to Daniel, their stares filled with disgust. He stood tall despite their scorn, though the weight of their hatred pressed like a blade against his throat. Kaelin's silence was answer enough. The elder's lips curled into a snarl. "Then it is true. You have shamed your blood. You have defiled your clan. The law is clear, such weakness cannot be tolerated. The human must die." Daniel's fingers tightened on his knife, but he knew it would not be enough. They were too many, too skilled. His heart pounded, but he did not step back. If this was the end, he would not meet it crawling. Kaelin moved before he could speak. She stepped between him and her people, her blade flashing from its sheath, its edge gleaming in the firelight. "No," she said, her voice sharp as steel. "You will not touch him." The warriors shifted uneasily, but the elder's eyes narrowed. "You defy us? You would raise your blade against your own blood for this fragile creature." Kaelin's chest rose and fell, her breath steady, her golden eyes burning with defiance. "Yes, because he is not fragile. He is my equal, my bond, my mate." The words struck like lightning through the canyon. Silence followed, heavy and electric. Even Daniel froze, his breath catching at the weight of her declaration. The elder's face twisted with fury. "You would disgrace yourself further by speaking such blasphemy? You would bind yourself to a human." "I already have," Kaelin said. Her hand never wavered on her blade. The warriors shifted, their hands tightening on their weapons, but none moved forward. They knew Kaelin's strength. She had been one of their fiercest huntresses, a warrior who never faltered. To challenge her now would mean blood. The elder's voice dripped with venom. "Then you are no longer Nasari. You are exile. You are nothing." Kaelin's jaw clenched, but her voice never broke. "If that is the price, I accept it." The elder turned her gaze to Daniel, her eyes filled with pure hatred. "And you, human, you will bring ruin to her, to both our worlds. Remember this night, because it will end with blood." With that, she turned, signaling the warriors. One by one, they stepped back into the shadows until only the whisper of their departure remained. The canyon was silent again, save for the crackle of the fire. Daniel exhaled, realizing he had been holding his breath. He looked at Kaelin, who still stood firm, her blade steady at her side. "You did not have to do that," he said quietly. Her golden eyes turned to him, fierce and unwavering. "Yes, I did, because what I feel for you is not weakness. It is the only truth I have ever chosen for myself." For the first time since their journey began, Daniel saw not just the huntress, not just the warrior, but the woman beneath. And in that moment, he knew her choice had bound them together in ways neither desert nor clan could break. But he also knew the elder's warning was true. Blood would come. The days that followed were restless. Kaelin no longer spoke of her clan, but Daniel saw the weight of exile pressing against her shoulders. She moved with the same deadly grace, but her golden eyes carried a shadow that had not been there before. Still, she did not falter. She had made her choice, and Daniel had become her path forward. But the Nasari had not finished with them. It began under the light of the twin moons. Daniel was gathering water from a shallow pool hidden among rocks when the air shifted. The silence felt wrong, heavy. He looked up just as Kaelin shouted his name. Shadows burst from the cliffs above. Warriors draped in desert cloaks, blades flashing like fangs. The first struck fast, a spear aimed for Daniel's chest. He dropped low, the weapon grazing his shoulder, the pain sharp and hot. He rolled, sand clinging to his blood, as Kaelin leapt into the fray. Her blade tore through the air, steel meeting steel with the scream of sparks. "They will not stop," she growled, cutting down one attacker. "They will hunt us until you are dead." Daniel's breath burned in his lungs. "Then we stand together." The fight was chaos. Daniel used every ounce of cunning he had, his traps and tricks against warriors bred for battle. He kicked sand into eyes, used jagged rocks as weapons, turned the terrain itself against them. Kaelin moved like a storm, each strike precise, each step calculated. Her blade sang through the night, carving arcs of silver under the moonlight. But their enemies were relentless. More came, slipping from the dunes like shadows given form. Daniel's knife broke against a spear haft, leaving him unarmed. He ducked a blow that would have split him in two, only to find another blade slicing toward him from the side. He braced himself, and Kaelin was there, her body between his and the strike. The blade tore across her arm, blood splattering against the sand, but she did not falter. She struck back, her roar echoing through the canyon, driving her attacker to the ground. Daniel's heart hammered as he caught her, steadying her as crimson stained her violet skin. "You are bleeding." She cut him off with a snarl. "Then fight harder, human." Something inside him ignited at her words. He seized the broken spear at his feet, spun it in his grip, and drove the jagged edge into the chest of the nearest warrior. The man gasped, fell, and did not rise again. Daniel's breath came ragged, but he stood tall beside her, no longer prey, no longer fragile. One by one, the assassins fell. The sand drank their blood, the echoes of battle carried away by the wind. When the last warrior staggered forward, Kaelin and Daniel struck together. Her blade across his throat, Daniel's spear through his chest. The man collapsed, lifeless, his blood steaming against the cold sand. Silence followed. The desert stretched around them, the stars above unblinking. Daniel's chest heaved, his arms trembling with exhaustion. Kaelin stood beside him, her blade slick with blood, her golden eyes blazing. "They sent assassins," Daniel said, his voice rough. "Your people will never stop." "They are not my people anymore," Kaelin replied, her tone low but steady. She wiped her blade clean against her cloak and met his eyes. "I chose you, and I will keep choosing you, even if it costs me everything." Daniel stared at her, sweat and blood stinging his skin, and realized the truth of it. She had fought not just with him, but for him. Together they had survived what should have been impossible. And in that shared victory, something unbreakable was forged. They were not Nasari. They were not human. They were something else entirely. Two souls bound by blood, loyalty, and fire. But even as they stood among the fallen, Daniel knew this was only the beginning. Their bond had defied death tonight, but the road ahead would demand more. Much more. And yet, for the first time, he was certain they could endure it. Together, the desert was silent again. Only the bodies of the fallen marked where the storm of blades had raged. Daniel's hands shook, not from fear, but from the raw weight of survival. He glanced at Kaelin, her arms still bleeding, her chest rising and falling like the sea after a storm. They moved into the shelter of a narrow cave, their steps heavy, their bodies sore. Daniel tore strips from his cloak and bound her wound, his touch gentle though his own skin was cut and bruised. "You should have let me take that blade," he muttered, his voice low. Kaelin's golden eyes softened in the dim firelight. "And let you fall? No, Daniel. I would rather bleed beside you than live without you." The fire crackled, painting her violet skin in shades of amber and shadow. For a long moment, neither spoke. The silence between them was no longer cold or suspicious. It was full, heavy with meaning, with something that words could barely carry. At last, Kaelin spoke, her voice almost a whisper. "You know what they will do now. The clan has failed to kill you, but they will not stop hunting us. We cannot remain on Varaxis 9. Daniel nodded, his gaze steady. "Then we leave. Together. Let them call us traitors, outcasts, or worse. I do not care. You are my choice. Kaelin's lips curved, a rare smile breaking through the hardness she wore like armor. She reached for his hand, her fingers lacing with his. There is something you must know. Her tone carried a weight that made Daniel's heart pause. He turned to her, searching her face. She took a slow breath, her hand guiding his to rest gently against her stomach. I carry more than my own life now. I carry yours as well. Our child grows within me. For a moment, the world itself seemed to stop. The cave, the fire, the wounds and scars. All of it faded beneath the enormity of her words. Daniel's chest tightened, his throat thick with emotion he had never known before. Kaelin, his voice cracked, but he did not look away. You mean, yes? She whispered, her golden eyes glimmering with something fragile and fierce all at once. Our blood has joined. A future neither of us thought possible is now real. Daniel pulled her close, his arms wrapping around her as though shielding her from the entire world. He pressed his forehead against hers, his eyes burning, not with pain but with something brighter. Then no matter what hunts us, no matter where we go, we fight for that future. For us, for our child. The fire flickered, casting their shadows against the cave wall. Two figures intertwined, bound not by war or survival, but by something far greater. When dawn rose over the crimson desert, Daniel and Kaelin walked away from the battlefield, hand in hand. Behind them lay exile, betrayal, and blood. Ahead stretched an uncertain road across the stars. But together, they carried something stronger than fear, stronger than hatred, stronger even than death. Love. And in that love, the promise of a new legacy, where human and Nasari blood would mix, not in war, but in life.